Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I check out the cultural and historic complex and museum reserve before leaving Monto. We then hike in Kanya Gorge, wander the historic museum in Biloela, and then move on to Banana and Theodore. Monto is perched on the banks of the Three Moon Creek and the Burnett River, and we just had to have another look at the amazing artwork found throughout the town. For such a small rural town, there were some impressive pieces. I thought the family on the building was something, but the commentary box at the showgrounds was impressive. The cultural and historic complex and museum reserve on Flinders Street was another fascinating place we visited during our stay, full of interesting history of the region, with a variety of historical displays, including memorabilia on Monto's Olympic welterweight representative and an outstanding mineral collection. The fifth replica of the Liberator bomber Beautiful Betsy, which crashed in the area during the Second World War and stayed hidden for nearly 50 years, and not too far away the statue of Ken Russell, who grew up in Monto, but was killed sadly in a riding fall at Rosehill in 1993. The grounds of the complex consisted of a group of pioneer buildings, including the Kanya Gorge Goldfields slab hut and the Goody family's Burnham homestead kitchen, which dates from around 1910. The slab hut and the Burnham homestead kitchen are original buildings relocated from the surrounding rural properties. We were interested in an unusual timberjack honed from one log, an early railway carriage with historic railway memorabilia, and the Cynthia Station siding. In one of the sheds was a remarkable array of horse-drawn vehicle replicas built by Harold Ware, and a wheelwright's workshop. White settlement of Monto district was said to have started in 1850, with A. H. Trevethan taking up land that became known as Rawbell Station, the first of a number of large sheep properties to be settled in the next 10 years, and played a significant role in developing the district. There was so much European history to keep us busy for quite some time. In 1928 the railway connected the district to Maryborough, and in 1929 saw the establishment of the Port Curtis Dairying Company. By 1930 a connecting railway line had been built through to Gladstone. The North Burnett sure is full of country character and charm, with the region agriculturally diverse, growing citrus, grapes, blueberries, watermelons, pecans, peanuts, beef, pork, and dairy. Not far from its doorstep is the incredible national park Kanya Gorge, with its majestic mountains, refreshing rock pools, sandstone gorges and cliffs, and abundant wildlife. The next stop on our travels. On leaving Monto, we crossed Three Moon Creek, with its huge colony of flying foxes, not the best thing to have on the edge of town. The countryside varied as we made our way along the Burnett Highway, from open grazing country to irrigated cropping. We passed through the rural town and locality of Moonford on our way to Kanya Dam. The area was once big in the dairying industry. There is very little left of the town but the Moonford Hall. Even the Anglican Church is now a private residence, and the school that opened in 1934 was closed in December 1982. On arriving at Kanya Gorge National Park, we parked Gidget and then made our way further into the gorge to the dam, with our first stop at the historic site of Clark and Ivy Bartlett. Clark came to the Kanya area in the 1920s as a miner, then left for a while before returning in 1936 with his wife and built a dirt floor hut near Three Moon Creek, where they raised 6 children. In 1948 he spent days walking with a reporter along the trails he had discovered while hunting, trying to convince the reporter he lived in the best place in the world, resulting in big spreads being written about the Bartlett family who lived at Kanya Gorge in a couple of the papers. Tourists flocked to see Kanya and Clark's humble home, where he showed them bush pleasures and where to roam. Kanya Gorge was a reserve at the time, and Clark proudly showed many visitors around the gorge, until he was unable to due to going blind from glaucoma. The huts were infected with white ants and had to be destroyed. Clark was instrumental in starting the tourism in Kenya Gorge. Kenya gold was discovered in 1870, but Clark didn't come to Kenya as a miner until 1926. Though a miner on and off, he was also a mailman, shopper for miners and settlers, and repaired mowers, and was happy to impart his knowledge of the area to any visitor that came. Some would say he lived a hermit's life, but for others he led a self-sufficient life, keeping bees, growing fruit and vegetables, trapping dingoes and killing kangaroos for meat, along with the many other tasks when living in rural areas at that time. From the memorial site we made our way to the lookout above Kenya Dam, situated on Three Moon Creek, a tributary of the Burnett River, where we had views of the gorge's coloured sandstone cliffs and spectacular scenery. The dam wall is an earth and rock-filled embankment type. The dam, when full, has a surface area of just over 7.5 square kilometres, with an average depth of around 12 metres. The dam was named after the abandoned gold mine town of Kenya, which was inundated by the lake as it filled. The dam was completed in 1982, reaching a low of 3.3 capacity in February 2003, then overflowing for the first time in late December 2010, with subsequent overflows on a number of occasions since that time. From the dam we made our way back to the Shamrock mine site. We followed the track as it meandered along the creek, then up a small hill, passing through eucalypt woodlands. The area was very dry as we wandered between relics of the past. The former Shamrock gold mine site is a self-guided walk, with information at the car park about the Kenya goldfields and also at the mine site. There are abandoned mine shafts that we needed to be on the lookout for, as some were not as shallow as they seemed. The remains of the old battery, mine shafts, processing sheds and malloc heaps could be seen along the way. As alluvial goldfields were gradually depleted, prospecting turned to reef mining, where shafts sunk to depths of about 180 metres to follow the direction of the vein, with many shafts having timber sides to stop the walls from collapsing. Miners worked in tough conditions. The terrain was rugged and often inhospitable, and then, to top it off, the bad air inside the shafts often hampered the underground work. We then made our way back to Gidget for a restful afternoon, as the following day we had some trails to follow. Indigenous people have lived in Kenya Gorge for at least 19,000 years. The art at Kenya Gorge is free hand painting, very different to other styles recorded to the west and south. The following morning, with an early start to the day, we made our way past Big Foot, featuring a natural stain resembling a large four-toed foot painted on the white sandstone cliff. We continued on along the trail for about 900 metres, along the edge of an open clearing where wallabies were enjoying the early morning, so that we could walk the circuit in an anti-clockwise direction. The trail crossed the Doctor's Gully quite a few times as we made our way through the eucalypt and vine forests to Fern Tree Pool, sometimes along the dry creek bed, while at other times scrambling around rocks. It really was an interesting hike through very, very dry country. The gorge preserves a valuable remnant of the Brigalow Belt natural region, with more than 150 different types of plant communities found in the region, including brigalow forest, eucalypt forest and woodlands, cypress pine woodlands, dry rainforest and grasslands. On reaching Fern Tree Pool, we spent some time just enjoying the greenery. From Fern Tree Pool, the track continues on, firstly up a moderate climb for about 2.2 kilometres, up a sandstone escarpment to the Giant's Chair Lookout, where we could see across the gorge to where side gullies and creeks provided moisture and cool conditions suitable for ferns, mosses and rainforest plants to grow, in contrast to the open woodland of tough eucalypts on the exposed plateaus above the cliffs that are dry and often exposed to the hot sun. Fringing the base of some of the cliffs and extending down drainage lines was the rich green of vine thicket vegetation. The trail from Giant's Chair Lookout to the car park was down a steep track and steps with beautiful grass trees lining our descent, and then the return 900 metres we had to walk back along the edge of the woodland to Gidget. Once back from the Fern Tree Pool and Giant's Chair Lookout circuit that took us just over 2.5 hours, we then made our way to Dragon Cave, Gorge Lookout and Bloodwood Cave. The iconic trails at Kenya is where, over centuries, weathering of the sandstone has moulded the rock, taking on striking yellow and red features. Starting at the southern end of the picnic area, we began by following the Dripping Rock track for 400 metres, crossing over the little bridge over Russell Gully. We then made our way to Dragon Cave, past the Dripping Rock track turn-off and up a moderately graded track to the cliff face adorned with silver elkhorns. The rock steps into Dragon Cave pass a white sandstone wall with a dragon-shaped black stain. The southern branch of the track took us further around to Bloodwood Cave, so called because the roots of the bloodwood tree can be seen at the left-hand side of the cave, before making our way back to the Dripping Rock track. The track to Dripping Rock first crosses Three Moon Creek and then winds through the woodland and dry rainforest before leading to the base of Dripping Rock, about 1.1 kilometres in. The overhang is a further 500 metres further on, passing through eucalypt forest and dense vine forest with tree ferns and pickerbean palms to where water has eroded the base of the sandstone cliff. A boardwalk along the base of Dripping Rock helps to protect the fragile ferns and mosses that thrive in the moisture that seeps from the sandstone cliff face. From the Dripping Rock we continued on to the overhang through weathered multicoloured sandstone. Rick continued up the steep steps where he could look into the tranquil pool in Russell Gully, though there was not much of the pool left with the conditions so dry. I nearly made it to the top of the overhang, but the steep number of steps got to me, especially after having done the Fern Tree Pool and Giant's Chair Lookout hikes that morning. We returned back along the track to the car park. On returning to the car park we took a short walk that ran beside Three Moon Creek that gave us a great view of the sandstone cliffs across the creek and the surrounding eucalypt woodland before returning to Gidget. The different trails have their own character and reveal different aspects of the sandstone cliffs, gorgeous views, shady pools and the ever-changing eucalypt woodland and dry rainforests. The sign at the entrance of the park explains, 65 million years ago Kenya Gorge did not exist. Instead, this area was covered by many layers of sandstone which formed on the bottom of an ancient lake during the Jurassic period, 160 to 190 million years ago. After the lake dried up, forces under the Earth's crust tilted the exposed sandstone layers slightly and caused them to crack so that runoff from rainwater began to seep southwards along a fault line. For 65 million years this water flow eroded the sandstone. Eventually, the winding bed of the Three Moon Creek and the wide gorge we see today were formed. Both Rick and I really enjoyed the hikes, each with their different aspects, and after having travelled quite a few kilometres that day, I was glad to put my feet up for what was left of the afternoon. The following day we left Kenya Gorge and made our way back to Monto to collect a few things we needed. From there we made our way to Biloela, passing through Kamingla State Forest, with its steep climb, where Queensland's largest patch of semi-evergreen vine thicket with crow's ash and bottle trees intermingle. It is of great interest to naturalists and bird watchers. There were also areas of open eucalypt forest featuring spotted gum, ironbark and gympie mesput with grassy understories. We then stopped at Lawgie Hall for morning tea. What a great place to stop to view the surrounding countryside, being the gateway to the Callide Valley. Lawgie Dawes is a rural locality that contains the neighbourhood of Lawgie, a former town. a proposed railway station along the route from Ramies to Monto in the late 1920s, early 1930s, but unfortunately the last section of the railway line from Logie to Monto was never completed, and Logie became the terminus, resulting in the establishment of a township. However, the railway line was not profitable, and the section from Thangool to Logie was closed in 1955. As a result, the township gradually disappeared, leaving only the community hall. The area is a productive agricultural area, with cattle and grain farming predominating. After morning tea and a wander around the hall to stretch our legs, we made our way on through Thangool, a one-pub town. More than 130 years in the making, Thangool first opened to settlers who tried it as a sheep run in the 1850s, soon to fail. Cattle were introduced, and later dairy and cotton took hold. Based on the success of these industries, a makeshift town sprung up. Today, the town is home to a sizable squab industry, providing Australia with 60% of its squab supplies, along with large paddocks of sorghum, wheat, sunflowers, barley and mung bean crops, the mainstay of local food production. Our camp for the night was at the Heritage Park in Biloela. What a hot day it turned out to be, in the low 30s. On arrival, we unhooked Gidget and then went for a look around town, and came across a stunning large-scale artwork on the water reservoir called The Spirit of the Land, that tells the history of the land and its people, focusing on the connection between Indigenous and non-Indigenous cultures and their relationship with the land. Over 100 metres long, it contains different intricate murals that join together seamlessly to piece together the stories of the surrounding country, from its prehistoric beginnings to the early 20th century times, to form one giant magnificent story, from Indigenous women and their cultural histories, along with early settlers to modern times. It is an extraordinary depiction of the history of the land. A series of plaques outlined the path as we strolled around the reservoir. Biloela in the Shire of Banana is inland from the city port of Gladstone and lies at the junction of the Dawson and Burnett highways. The town's economy is driven by pastoral and agricultural enterprises and by the local coal mines, which power the Callide Power Station just north of the town. The district is primarily driven by cotton production, dairying, wheat, sorghum, lucerne and other grains and cereals, and has the third largest abattoir in Queensland. After driving around town, we made our way back to Gidget, where we wandered the displays around the Heritage Park and enjoyed a colourful sunset. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Enjoy every day and be inspired. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, Living Life.